It's now time for Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. It began as a podcast, went live on the net, and transformed into a full-blown empire. It's the only daily boxing talk show on the planet, hosted by the only guy with the balls to do it. Many have stepped into the ring. Many have tried to take the belt. And one by one, they've fallen. Another victim of the undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. Talkin' Boxing with Billy C is on now.
My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable, and I'm just ferocious. I want your heart.
Coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George in New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening. I hope you're doing all right. We're back after a vacation. Good to be back. Today's show is being brought to us in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant, located on beautiful St. Simon's Island in Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Find out why I go all the way to St. Simon's for an authentic Italian meal. And today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold, and you can get a copy while you're watching this show right now, like right now. Just go to barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. Want a signed copy? Just visit the website or drop me an email, Billy at talkinboxing, TalkinBoxing.com. And you know the website, BillyCBoxing.com. Scheduled to come up a little bit later, we got Boxing Hall of Famer and New Jersey Athletic Commissioner Larry Hazzard scheduled to join us. We may or may not do the blast from the past. I had heard that Alex was a little under the weather, so if we do it, it'll be on former world heavyweight champion and Boxing Hall of Famer, as per request, John L. Sullivan. But we also got some fight results, a bunch of emails to go over, but we'll get started right now. I was going to get Sal on, but Sal has left his station for bigger and better places. But first and foremost, I'll start off with the fights from the weekend. Danny Garcia stops Brandon Bam Bam Rios in the 9th round with a devastating punch. I mean, there was no question about that. And I thought that Kenny Bayless, as much as I'm critical about him a lot of times with all those googly-eyed looks and faces he makes, he did the right thing. I mean, Brandon Rios, known for his heart and determination, wanted to continue, but, you know, he's staggering around, didn't know. I mean, when you get a shot like that, a one-punch drop crumbles to the canvas the way Rios did, the best thing to do is stop the fight. Joining me right now with his thoughts on that knockout is Sal Rocky Senecola. Good morning, Sal.
Good morning, Bill, and welcome back, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm doing well. It's good to be back in the saddle. But what was your thoughts on the knockout? Danny Garcia knocking out Bam Bam Rios in the 9th round. It was a pretty entertaining fight. Bam Bam Rios, obviously the smaller guy, and it showed in the ring. But what's your thoughts on that knockout?
Well, the knockout was a great shot. I mean, I think Rios got lazy with that left. He threw that jab, and instead of snapping it right back and keeping it up there as defense, as you're taught from day one, it kind of lazily just drifted down and pulled and left his chin wide open for a right lead and a counter shot, as Danny Garcia did, and he found the home with that one big shot that put Rios down and barely able to even get up by the 10 count. And I think the referee made a perfect decision to say, hey, you know what? When he said, follow me or come to me. And obviously he saw there was a little staggering, a little stir step. Did the 100% correct thing right there. In fact, I think they should do that more often. Hey, come to me, follow me. But yeah, it was a great shot by Danny Garcia and a good stoppage by the referee.
You know, in that fight, Sal, Bam Bam Rios did what all fighters become proficient in doing. He went to automatic. He went to automatic mode. He automatically lifted his gloves up and was trying to show that he was okay. But like you said, when Bayless said, take a step this way, and he went to, it took him a while to find his foot, and Bayless did the right thing. The official time was 2 minutes and 25 seconds of the ninth round. After the fight, Danny Garcia said, it was a tough fight. I knew Brandon would come to fight. It was a good fight till it ended. Me and my dad had our plan. I knew he was going to stand in front of me. He worked good on the inside. We stayed composed and followed the game plan. In what I thought was another clear WWE move and what seems to become the norm on Showtime, Sean Porter enters the ring. And when asked about that, Garcia said, I told him it's the Danny Garcia show, but it is what it is. It was my moment in the ring. I know how the game works. Usually want to fight someone and don't get the fight. Whoever they put in front of me, whatever happens, happens. After the fight, Brandon Rios said, I know I was doing good in the fight. I threw a lazy jab, but I got caught, just like you said, Sal. He says, I'm sad. I was breaking him down, and I thought I was doing really good. What else can I say? I felt I was up on points and winning the fight, which I don't know if that was true. He said, what's next? Hopefully, I don't go back down to the gutter. What do you take by that comment? Hopefully, I don't go back down to the gutter. It could be taken a couple of different ways. How did you take that comment by Brandon Rios?
I think what he meant by that, and again, this is a guy that was basically out on his feet. He just, obviously, I think he's got a concussion. So I think to collect his thoughts and to think about some things as a knee-jerk reaction, I think that was just his way of saying, hey, because I lost this fight, I hope I don't lose too many rungs on the ladder and drop all the way down and have to work my way up. That's what I think he meant by that, like his positioning in the top 10 or top 5. So I think that's what his intent was, but who knows?
I agree with you. That's exactly how I took it. And, his choice of words, because he did battle some things outside of the ring. And I hope he wasn't referring to that, but I took it the same way you did. In other action on that card, WBC super middleweight champion David Benavidez improved to 20-0 with 17 knockouts when he scored a unanimous decision over Ronald Graville. It was an exciting, one-sided fight, in my opinion. 120-108 twice, and one judge had it 119-109, all in favor of Benavidez, the young world champion, a guy to keep an eye on. And in a fight that was a total mismatch, Yordenis Ugas improved to 21-3 with 10 knockouts. He stopped the new Ray Robinson. I can't believe they even let him use this name in 1 minute and 5 seconds of the 7th round. Ray Robinson, which pains me to even say, drops to 24-3. Nothing exciting about that fight. The new Ray Robinson has been nothing since he came out. I'm surprised he's still fighting, but Ugas wins himself a position in the discussion for a world title fight. And some other action in the World Boxing Super Series. George Groves improved to 28-3 when he scored a 12-round unanimous decision over Chris Eubank Jr., who drops the second fight in his career. He's now 26-2, 117-112, 116-112, and 115-112, where the way the 3 judges scored it. Now Groves will face the winner of Callum Smith and his new replacement, which I'll get to in a second. Jürgen Brammer had to back out of the fight due to an illness. But after the fight, Groves said, he was, let me retract. I'm a little rusty. He was taken to the hospital because of a shoulder injury.
Energy?
Yeah, his shoulder was producing too much energy. He had a shoulder injury, and he was taken to the hospital to see. Apparently, it dislocated, and he popped it back in himself in between rounds. But he said, and I quote, after the fight, "My shoulder feels pretty sore, but I wasn't going to let anything beat me tonight. The better man won the fight. Credit to Junior for getting through the 12 rounds. I didn't think he would. Chris didn't lie when he said he was going to grit it out. That was a terrific fight for the fans." Chris Eubank said, "I couldn't see out of my right eye for the most of the fight, but a cut's a cut, and you got to deal with it. George has the heart of a true champion, and he did what he had to do. I thought I did enough in the later rounds to win, but hopefully we'll get the rematch." It was a good fight. I think in this particular fight, I know you didn't watch it, Sal, but I think what happened in this fight was experience prevailed. I think if Chris Eubank would have had a little more experience against that upper echelon fighters, which he's really only fought the last few fights, I think it's a different fight. I think Chris Eubank is improving, and to be honest with you, from what I saw of George Groves, this is a guy that's stagnant. He hasn't seemed to get better. He seems to have reached his plateau. Do you see that? I know you didn't watch the fight, but do you see that with a lot of fighters that they get to a certain level in terms of their quality of their game, and just that's it? They can't get any better. I mean, can fighters always get better, or do they finally reach? Do some fighters reach a plateau and then that's it?
Well, you hit it right there. I mean, some fighters, they constantly can improve. They can learn. They can practice. They could make it their own. The moves, the innate. It's very, there's almost like a sixth sense of boxing. I mean, when you're out there, you feel it in your mind. You have that kinesthetic sense. You see the punches coming, you slip, you counter. It's innate at that level. And some fighters can progress and let that shine through with their level of competition. And as they improve and as they steadily increase their opposition and the amount of output they need to have their bodies do, and they rise to that occasion. And that's the brilliance of boxing. Some fighters, they never tap into that. Not that they can't tap into it. Maybe that's all their level is. So there are many cases where fighters reach a certain plateau, but that's just it. And that sometimes is the difference between great and very good. That's just it. It's just a fine line between superiority and just very good.
In some other action over the weekend I want to get to. Now, we got a bunch of emails, so if we don't get to your email today, don't get pissed. We'll get to it tomorrow because the one of my main topics today is, of course, about my main man, Anthony Joshua. We'll get to that in a second. But in a really entertaining fight that only can end the way PBC fights end, Victor Ortiz and Devon Alexander fought to a draw in front of almost 5,100 people in Texas. To tell you the truth, I scored this fight for Devon Alexander, 116-112. This guy looked like the old Devon Alexander. I was very impressed with him. And aside from showing heart, Victor Ortiz didn't show much of anything else. I mean, this guy's got more lives than Freddy Krueger. But nonetheless, the way the judges scored it, and that's all that matters, 115, 113 for Ortiz. And then the other two judges gave it, one had it 116, 112 for Alexander. And then the third judge scored the fight even at 114, 114, which I thought was kind of a joke. It became a draw. And, this seems to happen a lot with the PBC. It's their way of protecting both their fighters because what happens is both these fighters now have an opportunity for a big fight. when realistically Devon Alexander should have gotten a win. And what really bothered me during this fight was that the announcers are talking about, they're going, oh, this fight's so important to Ortiz and Alexander because Errol Spence and now Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman are all looking for opponents. I'm saying to myself, they're looking for opponents. Why don't they look at each other? I mean, all these guys could fight each other. This is the problem with the PBC. They are trying to emulate and copy the UFC. They are doing things their own way, as Frank Sinatra would say. They want to have no ring card girls. They want to have the announcer announcing from some other disclosed location, not in the middle of the ring. They want their fighters to always win no matter what. They put them in. They brainwash the fan. I mean, this is a joke. It's like fake boxing. The bottom line is nobody wants to see Errol Spence or Danny Garcia or Keith Thurman fight either Victor Ortiz or Devon Alexander. They want to see them fight each other. What's wrong with that? I think that's a joke. What do you think, Sal?
Well, you hit it on the head. How many times do I get asked daily at the restaurant about boxing today versus I have to use it my era. I mean, in the 70s and 80s, and I just really it's a shotgun statement, but hey, because we at that era with that generation, we challenged ourselves. We didn't care who they said was the best. We wanted to get in the ring with the best to prove we were the best, and that seems to be what is lacking in some of the world-class fighters today that are on top of the game. It's not like they're asking for the fights to fight the best. They're waiting for the promoters or managers to be the voice piece to say, hey, we're going to fight this guy, or we're going to try and get a fight with that guy. It's not like these guys calling out each other saying, hey, you think you're so bad? Come on, I'm going to fight you. Let's get in the ring. Let's do it. Well, it's just, go ahead.
What I was going to say is you're right. They hide behind the promoter and the manager. Yes. I'll do whatever they say. It's clear that it's all about the money. And although I can't criticize them, I think I think the biggest problem is that the fans accept it. And the PBC fans, and there's specific fans of it's like when with this show I learned a long time ago. There's people that watch on TV. There's people that watch through the streams or on demand or on YouTube or listen to it on a radio dial or listen to it as a podcast, and they're all separate. It's like a different audience. Well, it's the same thing with the PBC and Showtime's events and HBO's events. It seems that a lot of times you got specific viewing audiences, and the PBC audience seems to buy into whatever they say. And I think it's a joke that they're accepting the fact that one of these main guys, Spence, Garcia, or Thurman, would fight Ortiz or Alexander next rather than demand that they fight each other. I don't know. Let me just get some other fights out of the way. A super middleweight that looked pretty good. Khalid Plant improved to 17-0 with 10 knockouts when he won a 12-round decision over Porky Medina in an elimination fight, 120, 108, 119, 109, and one judge had it even closer than that, 117, 111. I thought that it was a complete shutout. Khalid Plant, not the most exciting fighter, but a smart fighter, was dancing around doing his best version of a Floyd Mayweather. If you like that kind of thing, I don't, but he won and looked good. Medina drops to 38-9, and then a young fighter, which Carlos Balderas went the distance for the first time in his career to improve to 4-0 with 3 knockouts when he fought Jorge Rojas. All judges scored that one 40-36. This is a kid to keep an eye on. In some other fights in the super flyweight division, Miguel Gonzalez stopped Roman Gonzalez on May 5th, and then he had a devastating knockout of Sammy. Sammy Reyes. I'm sorry. Knocked him out the other day, and now he's ready for Chocolito, so we'll keep an eye on that. In an exciting fight on Friday, Ray Beltran improved to 35-7 with a draw when he scored a 12-round unanimous decision over Paulus Moses, who drops to 40-4. I loved this fight. Very a very gritty fight for two guys in their twilight years. What'd you think of this one, Sal?
I thought it was great, and as you said, it became a battle of attrition. I mean, they were toe to toe, they were covering up, they were doing inside fighting. It was classic. It was great. It was a great fight, and I'm glad Beltran won. It was a good fight, as you suggested. It was also the battle of these are the twilight years of these guys' careers, and Beltran, he pulled it out. He did a great job.
Yeah, if Moses threw a little more punches, it might have been a closer fight. 117, 111 twice, 116, 112. I don't know if it was 117, 111 in my opinion.
No, I don't think it was, Bill, and it was entertaining more so than that score reflected.
Yeah, I thought it was a little closer. I mean, if you want to just drop 1 point, that's fine. 116, 112. I thought it was. I didn't score it, but watching the fight and listening to the scores, I thought the fight seemed to be a little closer than that. Hey, listen, we're going to take a short break. When I come back, I want to talk about the latest news about my man, Anthony Joshua, and the fact that they do plan on coming to the United States for his next fight, providing he wins in March against Joseph Parker. I'll be back in 2.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
A high-end dishwasher. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing, electrical systems, and much more. Plans start as low as $25 a month. I let your appliance or your budget, or go through the hassle of finding trustworthy service people. Last year alone, we saved our customers over $120 million. Don't wait until something breaks and you're stuck with a huge bill.
Save a lot of money. It's absolutely worth it.
If you don't have First American Warranty, get it.
Call 1-800-946-6234 for your free no-obligation quote.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Thing gave me instant relief, except for the doctor.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD for.
Belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend, family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Let them live with less pain, be more active, and to do the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily. You under a month of debt. Tax 10,000. Years of experience connecting with tax resolution specialists. Work through the IRS Fresh Start program. All the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Are you currently on Medicare? In other words, do you carry the red, white, and blue Medicare card? If so, are you suffering from chronic back pain? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a pain-relieving back brace covered by Medicare at little to no cost, shipped directly to your home for free. Medical-grade back braces are ideal for lower back pain, arthritis, spinal disorders, and other chronic back problems. Will you qualify for a medical-grade back brace?
Call Back Brace America at 1-800-290-8300.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Billy Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And with me right now is my man Sal Rocky Senecola. And Sal, some more news. We got a bunch of news to catch up on here. We've been out for a week, but and like I said, we got a bunch of emails to read. So if we don't get to yours today, we will definitely get to them tomorrow and Friday. Anthony Joshua was announced yesterday that they do plan. His promoter Eddie Hearn said that they do plan to make to have Anthony Joshua make his United States debut in either August or September, most likely in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center. When they talked about it, he said, we want the unification fight with Deontay Wilder, but it looks very unlikely because Wilder is not realistic about the split of the money. But we do feel a fight in America would be beneficial to us and at Barclays in Brooklyn, since we can't come to an agreement with Deontay Wilder. It looks like Baby Miller will be the guy as long as he wins his next fight, which we'll be talking about a little bit later. He's scheduled to fight Johan Duhaupas in the fight that's going to be taking place in Brooklyn with Danny Jacobs on April 28th. You know what, Sal? It's a shame because I feel bad about this move with Anthony Joshua. Number one, I don't believe that Baby Miller deserves a shot at any world title, let alone Anthony Joshua's. It's a joke that he gets to get to this position so quickly. And number two, if he's going to come to the U.S. and fight, he's got to fight a substantial opponent. By going to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, I can see and feel what Eddie Hearn's trying to show. He's trying to show that Anthony Joshua is going to draw more and better than Deontay Wilder does. But you could bet your last dollar Deontay Wilder is going to be in that audience, and they're going to pull a WWE move. What's your thoughts on AJ coming to the States and fighting a guy that's, in my opinion, not even a legitimate top 10 contender in Jarrell Baby Miller?
Well, obviously, he's been mentioning and he's been wanting Anthony Joshua, I'm talking about, his desire is to come to the United States and, have a good fight and a good showing of what he can do. And I think the fans here will love him. I just wish it was against a formidable opponent other than Miller. And, how better can you make a statement than going into one man's backyard and say, hey, I'm going to fight in your backyard and I'm going to draw better than you ever have. That will be, hey, let's get it on, as Mills Lane used to say, for them to try and elevate the desire to put that fight together between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. And I think that's almost like a challenge, like I dare you cross this line. Let's go in your backyard. I'll show you what I could do, and then we'll have the fans and everybody just want us to get in the ring, and it'll happen. I don't know if that's the best case, but as you said, I don't think Baby Miller is the guy that he should be making his United States debut. I do like the Barclay, I do like Madison Square Garden, and I do like Las Vegas. So, any one of those three will be pretty good. But like I said, there's a certain statement he's trying to make to Deontay Wilder going in his backyard.
They also have mentioned that they're not taking his fight against Joseph Parker lightly, which is the end of March 31st. And they shouldn't, because Joseph Parker is a real opponent. When push comes to shove, AJ's in a tough fight. He can't be looking ahead, past that. But as far as Baby Miller, I think that's a joke. And that's going to be, you watch, that's going to be what Deontay Wilder says. Oh, he's fighting a bum. He's fighting this, because Deontay Wilder doesn't realize that he, too, has been fighting nothing but bumps. But don't forget, he's going to be fighting Luis Ortiz I got some quotes from Ortiz. Can't wait to get in the ring. But the closer that fight gets, the more I'm looking at that as they're throwing Ortiz all this money. I think Ortiz is going to lay down in this fight. I really do. I don't think that. I think Wilder's going to come out and destroy Ortiz because that's the plan. But excuse me.
I agree with you. I don't think it's going to be one-sided. And I got a new nickname for Baby Miller. We can call him Baby Steps Miller.
One thing I wanted to mention was that Eddie Hearn, said that, keep in mind that this fight against Joseph Parker will be on Showtime. Now, Showtime had 6 fights with, or I don't know if it was 6, but this is the final one. And they used their last offer rights to outbid HBO to get the Joseph Parker fight. So this is the last fight. It would have been, it was the 6th fight in a row on Showtime. But after this fight, he's going to be a free agent. Now, HBO and Showtime both plan on bidding to get the television rights for Anthony Joshua. HBO's VP, Peter Nelson, has expressed extreme interest in making that happen. But Eddie Hearn said something kind of, makes me kind of appreciate the at least the act of loyalty. He said Showtime were the guys who backed AJ when other people weren't interested, so they're going to get the first opportunity to sign him to a deal as far as I'm concerned. They put the money up and invested in AJ's careers when others didn't. So we'll be looking and talking to all the American broadcasters, but this is a very important decision about picking which network we want to be on. And to hear that he's leaning towards Showtime. Hey, listen, I'm not a fan of Steven Espinosa or Showtime, but I will take, because I can't stand the commentators on Showtime. I think they're terrible. But you can't deny that they definitely put on more boxing events than ESPN and HBO combined, Sal.
Well, they really have risen to the top on that level, and HBO has been, not treading water. That's that's a lack of a right definition, but I think they have, clawed and tried to keep themselves as top reign. But I think the class of fights, I think the whole broadcast team and scenarios, I think it looks like Showtime has been putting together the package to make a winning, successful formula. HBO, I think they've had some growing pains. I think they've had some stagnant times. And whether they do a reface and a rebroadcast, I think that you made a comment earlier before our little vacation, that maybe this was HBO's way of putting all the eggs in one basket and making the vie to win an Anthony Joshua contract. By pulling back here and there, and maybe this is going to be their last or big push when that bidding could start between Showtime and HBO. Maybe so, and that's going to have to pan out. We're going to have to see. If not, Showtime has definitely evolved to be one of the best networks out there to show some world-class boxing.
Real quickly, because when we take this break, Sal, you're going to be on hold for at least a half hour, then we'll get you back. It doesn't look like we'll be doing the blast today. Alex is sick again. But the World Boxing Super Series has been great. The cruiserweight division has been great, and the super middleweight division has been fantastic as well. And one of the things I really admired about the World Boxing Super Series, not only were the fighters willing to take the risk and actually join this tournament, where a lot of them, no American fighters had the you-know-whats to do that. We've been blessed with the same guys participating. That was until this past weekend when it was announced that Jürgen Brähmer had to pull out of the fight. He was scheduled to fight Callum Smith this weekend, and he said, and I quote, "I've been battling a feverish infection since Sunday. Unfortunately, a fight in this state is out of the question. It's not possible for me to go in the ring like this, and I want to apologize to my fans. I was well prepared and looking forward to fighting Callum. Unfortunately, due to the World Boxing Super Series rules, the fight can't be postponed because they have all the finals and semifinals and everything all set up. So Brahmer is eliminated from the tournament. Now his replacement, which happens to be the first replacement in the entire tournament, both for cruiserweight and super middleweight, is Niki Holskin. Niki Holskin's 13-0 with 10 knockouts. He's 34 years old. Most of his career was as a kickboxer. The biggest name on his resume is Viktor Polakov, who was 13-3-1. It's unfortunate that this happened, but this is the rules. What's your thoughts real quick, Sal? I got about 30 seconds. Where Callum Smith getting a substantial fighter like Jürgen Brahmer, despite him being 39 years old, well accomplished, now all of a sudden he gets a guy with 13 professional fights under his belt and hasn't really fought anyone of note. And this guy is the guy that's getting him one shot closer to George Groves for the final.
Well, like I always say, Bill, we're going to see these fighters put up or shut up, and no matter what their opposition has been before, in their arsenal, in their package, this is going to see the product. Is it ready? Is it ready to rise to the occasion and go in against a world-class fighter and show what he's been keeping under wraps? It's as simple as that. Some fighters, they're all that, and they're just kept under wraps. And then they explode on the scene, and they gain with popularity, and they rise to the occasion, and it's everything you would assume it could be. Other fighters, as I said, boom, they hate the wrapping. They're better off keeping under wraps because they don't fare too well when they step up to that next level. So we're going to have to see in this fight.
And just to get an update, Groves says he's a fast healer. There's concern if he can't make it, what happens? Do you end up having a final with one of the fighters that's never moved up the ranks in this tournament? That is one of the negatives. By the way, Callum Smith and Holskin faced off for their first time yesterday. Holskin says, "I'm stepping up to meet one of the big guys in the super middleweight division, but they can expect the unexpected. I'm here to beat Smith." Callum Smith says, "Holskin looks like a good fighter. It really doesn't matter who I'm facing on Saturday. I wasn't happy about my performance against Sokolin in the quarterfinal, but this time I'll make a statement not only to the fans, but also to George Groves. I want to put on a good show." Basically, what these two guys said is exactly what you said. Sal, hang tight. We're going to switch you off for a bit. We're going to get Larry Hazard, then come back to you in about a half hour. So we'll see you in a bit. To everybody else, we're going to take a short break and be back in 2, so don't go anywhere.
Billy C will be right back.
Relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
Similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
This is important news for women using birth control medications and...
Hey, fight fans, check out KOFantasyBoxing.com. KO Fantasy Boxing is boxing's only trademarked fantasy game. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Select your own gym, your own fighters, track them through a season that can last from 3 months to a year, depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com, and tell them Billy C sent ya.
The one, the only, Don King.
Makes me feel good, Billy, to have you, the #1 show in the country, talking boxing with Billy. So I invite each and every American that's listening to this great show to tune in, because we want you to be there with Billy and me.
Now back to Talking Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C., damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talking Boxing with Billy C.
Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And speaking about being with us, joining us right now, Boxing Hall of Famer and New Jersey Boxing Commissioner, my man Larry Hazard. Good morning, Larry.
Good morning, Billy.
How you doing, my man?
Good. Very good, Billy.
Hey, listen, I want to talk to you about a bunch of stuff. First and foremost, Danny Garcia knocked out Bam Bam Rios 2 minutes and 25 seconds in the 9th round on Saturday. And although I thought the fight was entertaining, I thought Rios clearly was too small for Danny Garcia. But the main thing I wanted to talk to you about was Kenny Bayless. I'm not a big fan of Kenny Bayless, but I thought he did the absolute 100% right thing in stopping that fight. I mean, the devastating knockout of, or at least at first the knockdown that Garcia laid on Rios. And then when he got up, it was clear to me that it was instinct when raising the gloves. I mean, this guy was still in Dream Street. I thought Kenny Bayless did the absolute right thing. From your perspective, what's your thoughts?
No, it was the right call, but it was the obvious call. You know, I saw a few comments about that. There was no doubt in my mind that he was going to stop that fight. I actually thought that he was going to stop it as soon as he got up. But he gave him the benefit of the doubt. He checked his equilibrium, although he could have even been more convincing if he had moved to the right or moved to the left, okay, because it's a learned response for the fighter to come forward, straight forward. But it was quite obvious that Rios was done. So, to me, that was an obvious stoppage. I don't think that it, took any extra insight to, although I do applaud the referee for doing the right thing, but, I mean, it was just one of those routine situations to me in terms of whether it should have been stopped or not. Of course, we do know that there are some referees who are pretty brave and who would have allowed it to continue. So from that perspective, you have to give Bayless the credit that he wasn't very brave that night, and he did the right thing. So I applaud him for that.
I saw, when I was watching the fight, I saw Bam Bam Rios, like you suggest, learned instinctively, put his gloves up at automatic, and he's saying, I'm okay. When Kenny says, take a step forward or whatever, it was like he couldn't even get his leg to work, and then Kenny Bayless made the move. Were you seeing comments that people thought that the fight should have continued?
Yeah, I did see some. And, of course, as would be expected, Rios was the first guy to, to echo that sentiment that, he could continue. And, of course, he may have some diehard fans who looked to criticize the referee, who felt, but I did see some comments that it should have been allowed to continue. But you and I both know that that would have been going down some very dangerous path to allow that fight to continue, because it only takes one good shot, especially when a fighter's in that condition. He was seriously concussed, and a fighter doesn't need to take any extra punishment. The fight had gone into the late rounds. It was quite clear. Garcia looked much bigger and stronger than Rios. And Rios, fighting his normal type of fight, I think he was hoping that he could maybe get lucky but I don't think he was really fighting with a lot of strategy or real confidence in really trying to outmaneuver Garcia. I think he was just in there to make a good fight out of it, and if he got lucky, or if he could really, really put the fight in doubt by going the distance, then, he was rolling the dice. But I think as we got into the later rounds, you could see Garcia just taking charge. Rio wasn't hurting him at all. There was really very little strategy other than to come forward, throw as many punches as you can, and try not to get, hit too much. But, the punches caught up with him, and what we saw happen, was pretty predictable.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, Rios was landing shots, but they were not affecting Danny Garcia at all. And when that happens, and Danny just started walking through him and, opened up his offensive arsenal, and that was the end of Rios. So you're right. The size difference made a big difference in that fight. I mean, just remember, Rios was at his best at a lightweight. Now he's fighting 147, so, hopefully this was a decent payday for him, and that's it. But another fight I wanted to talk to you about, which really bothered me, Larry. Here you have a fight that had some significance with two guys that have been basically knocked down, and they're trying to get their careers back on track. And, of course, I'm talking about Devon Alexander and Victor Ortiz. I watched the fight. I thought the fight was exciting. But I got to be honest with you, I thought Devon Alexander won this fight. I didn't think it was even that close. I thought the fight was I scored it 116-112. I scored that fight. And I saw the glimpses of the old Alexander. I know they were talking about the pill addiction and all of that. And I tell you, that it seems to be true because this is a guy that when Devon Alexander first hit the scene, I thought this guy was one of the best, and then all of a sudden he just didn't look the same, and he looked like the old Devon Alexander. And given Victor Ortiz credit, I mean, Victor Ortiz is what he is. He's a brawler. He's a guy that shows heart at times, but he gets a lot of chances, more than Freddy Krueger. I can't believe that they scored this fight a draw, and all I could think of is that the PBC has taken a different turn. And although the fight looks great on paper, when you at the end of the day and you see a draw, what happens with these guys is both of them get an opportunity to move forward. Neither one really loses. What was your thought on the scoring and the draw, and why it seems that a lot of these PBC matchups, when they're putting their own fighters against each other, that these fights end up in a draw?
Well, neither one ended up losing, but the true winner did not win. Once again, because it was not a mega type fight, we certainly didn't see the uproar that we saw, in some of the other bouts, specifically the last one that we saw involving Adelaide Byrd in Vegas. But the robbery was pretty much the same, and so there we have a real clear contrast picture in the magnitude of the fight as opposed to, the robbery or thievery that takes place. The crime was just, the crime. I'm pardon my vernacular, but you know what I'm saying. The unfairness was equal. Devon Alexander clearly won the fight. And what it does point to something that I've kind of been denying in the sport for a long time. And for lack of a better term, there does seem to be a bit of, and if you can find a better word, Billy, but there does seem to be a little bit of corruption in the sport of boxing. You never heard me say that before, but Now, I'm calling it what it is. There's no reason why Alexander should not have been the winner of that fight. Now, another problem with that is the method in which judges score fights, which I've been advocating for a long time, and now I'm starting to hear echoes of it from a few other people. You have a 10-point must system, and the 10-point must system means that you have a series of points from 1 to 10 to score a fight, so that these points, the points are supposed to paint a graphic of what took place in the fight each round. That's what the numbers are supposed to represent, with 10 being the highest level of performance, either for fighter B or for fighter A. Now, what judges have been doing for many years now, and they seem to not want to break that mold, is that every fight, almost every round, if it's close, it's 10-9, and even if it's not close and a knockdown does not occur, it is still scored 10-9. That is not the way that the scoring system is supposed to work. If a round is not close, then the round should be scored 10-8, not 10-9. 10-9 is for close, very close rounds. Questionable rounds as to who won the fight. That's 10-9. But if there is a clear winner of a round, then that round should be 10-8. If a knockdown occurs in the interim there, perhaps even a 10-7, 10-6, 10-5. Use the numbers, because what could happen in a 12-round fight, one fighter could win 6 rounds, another fighter could win 6 rounds, and you got a draw. But the quality of fighter A's 6 rounds could be, enormously different from fighter B, where fighter A would have been declared the winner if the numbers had been used properly. But judges somehow don't want to break out of the mold because they fear criticism in the end. Okay, so they keep the rounds close, down all the way down to, in a 12-round fight, well, they get down to round 8 or 9. Okay, now they started opening it up a little bit. And that's why you end up with some of these crazy scores, you see. So until judges stop doing that, we're going to constantly be complaining about the scoring. Now, where does the corruption? And please, forgive me for using the term, but I can't think of anything, better to describe where I'm coming from right now. What I mean by that is this, is that you do have fighters who fight in certain parts of the country, fighters who fight in certain venues or whatever. They get the nod from the judges because of who they are and where they are. I have seen a definite pattern of this, okay? And until some of this nonsense stops, we're going to constantly be getting decisions like we saw last weekend. Now, that's what I have to say about that.
I agree. And the example you gave is so true. You take a 12-round fight. Fighter A wins 6 of those rounds, but he beats the snot out of his opponent for those 6 rounds. The other 6 rounds that they give to Fighter B, they gave him those rounds because it was close and they felt maybe he landed the harder punch or whatever to win that round. And at the end, when you tally up the scorecards, it's an even fight, even though it really wasn't. And I agree with you. A close fight that was going back and forth, a close round, I should say, going back and forth, and all of a sudden a flash knockdown happens, and that fight was even until that becomes a 10-9 round, not a 10-8. Don't make it a 2-point swing. Right. If on the other hand you got a fighter battering an opponent and you're going to score that fight, that round 10-8 because of the battering, and then all of a sudden a knockdown happens, you're right. That should be a 10-7 round, and then I think the results would be more realistic. For two judges to have that fight even, that kind of matches exactly what you said. They gave the first half of the fight to Alexander, second half of the fight to Ortiz or whatever, and the wrong guy didn't win. Alexander won that fight. There's no question. He displayed the better boxing skill. He landed the better punches. No disrespect to Victor Ortiz. He showed heart, but he didn't win that fight. And what I see, and a couple of things that bothered me with that fight is, number one, the PBC to me they're trying blatantly to be their own league in boxing. They're trying to steal like the UFC blueprint, which can't work in boxing at this stage. If you think about it, the PBC does things their own way. They don't have ring card girls. The announcer's at some secret disclosed location. We hear his voice, but we don't see the guy in the ring. They have these crazy results. It seems that they're trying to separate themselves, and I think that's a mistake. I think that we need more unity in the sport of boxing, not separation. We need these fighters to be fighting other fights. During the fight, the announcers actually said this fight is important because the champions, Errol Spence and Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman, are all looking for opponents, and the winner of this fight could possibly be one of their next opponents. And I'm saying to myself, looking for opponents? Why don't they look at each other? Everybody wants to see these guys fight each other. How could Ortiz or Alexander all of a sudden earn a shot against Thurman, Garcia, or Spence when we all know that we want to see Spence and Thurman fight, or even Garcia and Thurman fight, or any of those three fighting? How you slip in Ortiz or Alexander just doesn't make sense to me, Larry.
Well, I don't know if those commentators really know what day it is sometimes, but, I agree. That makes no sense at all. If they're looking for opponents, they should be fighting each other. It's absolutely right. The best should always be fighting the best. So they had plenty of opponents, if they're really looking, and it's and just one more last point. I don't want to belabor this point on scoring. You have a fight where two fighters are contesting, and fighter A actually is winning the round. Fighter B scores what we call a flash knockdown. Okay? He goes all the way from perhaps, if the bell had rung without the knockdown, and, based on the way they score fights right now, the round would have been scored 10-9 for fighter A. But fighter B now knocks him down. He actually gets a 2-point swing because most judges will now give that round to fighter B 10-8 the other way, Billy. That's fighter B coming all the way from a 10-9 to a draw, and then the other way, because you got to get back even first. You follow what I'm saying?
Yep.
If you're losing a round, and then you start to come back, make it close, you're only back to an even round now if you're using the numbers properly. And now, for a judge to take a fighter who has lost a round totally, and he throws a punch and knocks his opponent down, so he possibly comes from down 10-9 back to 10-10, then 10-9 and 10-8 in his favor. Right. That's almost like a 3-point swing.
I know.
Am I explaining that clearly?
Yeah, because because I agree. If you got fighter A is beating the snot out of fighter B,
right,
and you're ready to score it at least 10-9 or even 10-8, and then all of a sudden a flash knockdown happens, fighter B lands a shot that knocks him off balance. Fighter A's not hurt at all, but he hits the canvas. The judges are going to score. Most of the judges will score that 10-8 in his favor. Now he loses 3 points.
That's like a 3-point swing.
Yeah,
You're going from down 10-9 You got to pass 10-10 first. You got to come even in the bout, and then you're going in your favor 10-9, and then 10. That's almost like a 3-point swing the other way for one punch. That is utterly ridiculous, and we see it over and over.
There is no question about that. And that's the biggest problem. And I think you're right. And I still I still think that I still think that we have the judges not scoring it in the right order of the judging criteria. You know what I mean? I mean,
True.
you know, I think that they all know what the criteria is, but some put more value on certain points of the criteria than others, and that's how you end up with crazy scores as well. I wanted to just get your thoughts on three more things real quick. Beltran beats Paulus Moses on Friday in an entertaining fight. Will Beltran get another step? I mean, he's got a belt now. Is he going to be competitive at 36 and the mileage he's got? Or was this the crowning point of his career, in your opinion?
Well, I think he, you know, he's always been a tough kid. I think it's his father who had been promoting him down around in Mexico. He's always been a decent fighter. He's one of those guys, Billy. He's one of those blue collar type fighters.
Yep.
And he looked good the other night. He looked good, and I think that at this point in his career, he's gonna, you know, he's at the end, okay, but you know, he's at a good end. You know, he's got the experience. He looked good, and if he could stay sharp and fight like he fought Friday, I think that he's got a chance to really get into that elite group at least for a little while, you know, for as long as it'll last. But I think it's well deserved because he's one of those type of guys who's really fought his way, you know, and he's finally arrived at this point, and so I think he's still got a lot left.
Well, that was the good news. The bad news is they're talking about him fighting. He earned a fight against Vasily Lomachenko, so he better enjoy the limelight while he can. But yesterday was announced Eddie Hearn, who's promoting the Danny Jacobs fight with Baby Miller on the co-main event in New York. And he said Anthony Joshua, is definitely going to make his U.S. debut should he win against Joseph Parker on March 31st. Not only that, but they're saying that the fight most likely will take place at the Barclays Center. And he said that they want the unification match with Deontay Wilder, who fights Luis Ortiz in the beginning of March. He said, but because of the outrageous financial demands that Deontay is saying that he wants, that he's demanding, it looks like they're going to go to Plan B, which is Jarrell Baby Miller. Should Miller get past Johan Duhaupas on that undercard in April? Do you think? Well, what's your thoughts about that? It makes me sick that Jarrell Baby Miller is getting an opportunity this quickly. I mean, this guy has not. Johan Duhaupas will have been the best fighter on his resume should he beat him when they meet in Brooklyn. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, could there be someone else that AJ could fight? I mean, what do you think about him fighting Baby Miller?
Oh, who's Baby Miller?
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
Okay.
You know, I mean,
who's Baby Miller? Okay. Well, I think that Joshua making his American debut, okay, I think that's going to generate some excitement, okay, because he is now, I think, the real deal in the heavyweight division. I'm very disappointed that Deontay Wilder is going through these, these shenanigans with this, with these demands. I mean, come on, Deontay. Let's step up and prove that you're the best. Let's prove it in the ring, where it's supposed to be proven, and not just lip service. Okay? Joshua and Wilder is the fight that everybody wants to see. And what I don't understand is, number one, is that Wilder is not the cash cow. Okay, what makes him think that he is? I don't know. Okay, I think these guys sometimes, think that they're bigger. Well, not sometimes, most times, think that they're bigger than who they are. But if you look at Deontay's resume, Deontay, your resume really, even though I do think that you are a good fighter, you got a great trainer with Mark Breland, if you just continue to listen to him. But your resume, Deontay, doesn't really speak to all of this greatness that you're proclaiming to be. But now if you want that, and if you want to become more believable, it would seem to me that you would be more anxious to fight Joshua, even for a little less money, because you're not going to get the money that you think you deserve in this fight, okay, that you think you deserve. So come on out and fight the guy that people want to see, okay? Because between him and Joshua, I think he should look at a bigger picture. You go out, you fight, put up a great fight against Joshua. People are going to want to see it again. Everybody's going to want to see it again if you don't stink it out, which I don't think you will. I think you will be very competitive against Joshua, and you may win. I'm not predicting that he can beat you, but he is the guy that really people want to see you fight. So I think that would resolve it all right there for us with that heavyweight picture. These other guys, they are just fill-ins until that happens, Billy. Whoever, he's Joshua Escudo. I don't even know this guy that much.
No.
Who is he?
He's just another big mouth. Listen, we're out of time, but I want to make a point. Number one, Deontay Wilder has never made $2 million for a fight yet. He hasn't made $2 million. If he would suck it up and take the $7 million that they offered him to fight AJ and the U.S. television, what he really does from a business point, this is where the people around him are not advising him in a smart manner. Because if he takes that fight, and like you said, let's say he loses, but he doesn't even stink it up. It's a knockout. He could always say he caught me with a look and set up a rematch. This guy, even if he never fights AJ again, will never fight for less than $7 million. He creates a value for himself and a gauge that will never go back down. So really, in a sense, he's devaluing himself by not taking that fight. And then here's the other thing, which I think is brilliant by Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn is bringing Anthony Joshua to the same venue that Deontay Wilder calls his second home in Brooklyn. And when AJ sells out that place, you just lost. What Eddie Hearn is doing, in a sense, is devaluing Deontay more. There might be a chance that Deontay gets offered less money to fight AJ after the drawing power that's going to be on display when AJ fights at the Barclays Center. I mean, to me, this is Deontay's being advised incorrectly, in my opinion, Larry.
My opinion too. So I don't know. I don't know what their plans are, but I think that he's really being ill-advised. I really.
And you know what? Let's be real. In the heavyweight division, anybody could beat anybody. So why pussyfoot around? Why take the chance of somebody landing a lucky punch and ending it all? The same thing could happen to AJ when he fights Joseph Parker. He could be knocked out and all bets are off. And then the biggest fight that could have landed them both the biggest money never happens.
Well,
So
what happens if Ortiz? Okay, we don't know if that's going to be a tough assignment for Deontay when he fights Ortiz.
We hope so. We hope so. We hope that's a legitimate, real fight. If Ortiz gets blown out in one round, I'm gonna have a rotten taste in my mouth. But we'll see. And you're 100% correct. That's really the best name. Will be the best name on Deontay's resume should he get by him. And he certainly waited long enough. The guy's 40 years old, but you know how those Cuban fighters are. He's probably closer to 50. He's probably 48, so you never know. You never know. But
that's right.
Larry, I appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to you next week, brother.
Okay, babe. Okay, Bully.
All right, you take care.
Okay.
That's Boxing Hall of Famer Larry Hazard giving us his thoughts. Listen, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, I'll have Sal Rocky Senecola back with me. We got a bunch of emails to read. All of that is coming up in 2.
Billy C will be right back. Part of the Billy C Boxing Network.
Snacking has never been this exciting. At Graze.com, we combine wholesome ingredients with the flavors we all love to create over 100 exciting snacks. Like these. We'd love to send you a Graze sampler box for free. Just go to Graze.com, enter the code ENJOY36, and we'll mail your free box to your home or office. Join thousands of Grazers already in love with our exciting snacks. So come to Graze.com for your first box free.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
Similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Endless pools are an incredible alternative to traditional pools, making it easy and inexpensive to swim at home. Exercise year-round against a smooth current set to your desired pace and temperature. With our new underwater treadmill, you can walk or run without stressing your joints. Endless pools are simple to install and even simpler to maintain. The water stays crystal clear with almost no chlorine. Call for your free idea kit and experience the freedom of swimming at home.
Check out BillyCBoxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BillyCBoxing.com. Consider this your warning. Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. He may not have an Excellence in Broadcasting award, but the night's still young.
And he's got martinis.
So you never know what may be by morning. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C.
Talking Boxing with Billy C. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And back with us again is my man Sal Rocky Senecola. Alex is under the weather. And we are not doing our blast from the past today, but we will do it next week. And it is on former world heavyweight champion and Boxing Hall of Famer John L. Sullivan. Sal, we got some emails to read. You ready?
I am ready.
First one's from my man Jesse. He says, hey, Billy C. and Sal, welcome back. Thanks, Jess. He says, I watched some of the fights and was very disappointed in the Super Series. Eubank was a sloppy mess. Groves was content on keeping Eubank far out with his jab and straight right, but wasn't eager to engage and get into a firefight. I gave it to Eubank just because he was risking to engage, and Groves was either holding or moving away. Hard to watch the fight. Well, he just described every single Floyd Mayweather fight, right? So, I mean, it all depends what you're looking for. I agree with Jesse. I happen to like fighters that engage. And if you're all about safety first and all of that, maybe you should pick another sport. That's my thought. And I don't want to sound inhumane about it, Sal, but the truth of the matter is that what makes boxing great and what would make it, back in the discussion, good or bad, would be more aggression on the fighters. If you're going to fight tippy-toeing and tapping and running and doing all of that and then complain that nobody's watching it, well, it is still an entertaining sport. It's supposed to be, and you need action. What do you think?
You need action. Absolutely. And, you much are preferred to have an action-packed fight that you're going to be drawn to and wanting to come back to the well and see over and over again, versus a stagnant fight. No real sizzle on the fight there.
He goes on to say, let's see, he says, Rios was game but was too slow and taking way too many shots. He got caught being lazy and not paying attention. Rios might have only 1 or 2 more fights left. His style doesn't match a mover and a counter puncher like Danny, Manny, or even Bradley. He needs guys like Alvarado who give and take, but that style wears you down in the long run. Danny Garcia versus Ugas, DeMarco, Figueroa, Jose Benavidez Jr., Delorme, since he probably won't fight Porter, Thurman, or Spence, which is a joke. I mean, the bottom line is Danny Garcia was a world champion, and he lost his title. Now, this is the kind of guy that you want a current champion to fight, to give Danny Garcia the opportunity to win a title back and to have the champion show that they can beat a world-class / champion caliber fighter. Keith Thurman, you know what? My respect for Keith Thurman is diminishing by the day. This guy, they're hiding something. There's something wrong with Keith Thurman, why they're not letting this guy fight. This whole marination BS is just that, BS. Because the truth of the matter is and the same thing with we're talking about Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. If they make that fight, another big fight would be waiting in the wings. God forbid something happens that maybe Joseph Parker beats Anthony Joshua. Now all of a sudden the big money fight for both Deontay and AJ goes out the window. Now Parker starts his little rise and cherry picking and all of that. It's a joke, Sal.
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree with you 100%, pal. That's what we always talk about. It's hard to get away from because it's the direction, it's the plateau, it's where we are today.
Yep. Jesse says David Benavidez was terrific, but needs to move his head and feet more. He stands up too straight. David and Zudo are the best in the division, and both beat all the Super Series guys. David versus Zuge, Truax, or DeGale next. What's your thoughts on Josh Kelly from the UK? I like Josh Kelly. He's a good guy to keep an eye on. As far as David Benavidez, come on, man. Don't even justify that he wasn't in the World Boxing Super Series. I mean, David Benavidez, although I'm going to say what I totally don't like people saying, this guy's still learning, but he is a world champion. It's sad that we didn't have United States representation for the World Boxing Super Series. It just goes to show you that Absolutely. The mindset of the United States boxers, which in my opinion are still the most talented bunch, are not willing to take chances. All they want to do is get money in their pocket and fleece the fan. And for the fans that accept this, you guys are you're making it worse, really. To me, it's embarrassing, Sal.
Well, it's like we said, it's just a new generation, a new crop, a new era. And, how many when I was coming up, when I was an amateur or even a fight fan at 8 years old, watching Ali and everything else, and looking at these guys that had 63 fights, 53 fights, 80 fights, and seeing that they got a title shot after their 40th or after their 50th fight. I mean, I was set on that was the benchmark. You had to have at least that to earn it. And now, we're seeing fighters under 20 fights getting world titles. and barely getting the experience or the seasoned experience that they are accomplished and proven and have all fought different styles, and already they're spoon fed, and boom, they fight somebody that has lesser skill, and boom, they're there with a world championship between 10 fights and 20 fights.
Right. We got another email. This is from my man Mitch. He says, I think Hearn's plan for Danny Jacobs is to fight the winner of Triple G and Carmelo. I'm sorry, I was going to say Carmelo Anthony.
Canelo. That's okay.
Now that they're all HBO guys, that works. Then all of a sudden, Baby Miller goes from Wilder this, Wilder that to I Want AJ. Miller just came from Showtime to HBO with Jacobs, all Eddie Hearn guys. I think AJ is going to go to HBO. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
That's the push. That's you. You came out with that, and I think, or it was a fan in an email. That might be, or it was you, Bill. But to think that HBO has been sandbagging and waiting to make the bid onto Joshua is a good point. Valid.
Well, hopefully they open up the checkbook, because it's going to take a lot. He's obviously the name in the sport, especially in the heavyweight division. I got a series of emails from my man Willie, who sent me one on Monday, one on two on Tuesday. So let's get started with him. He says, "Hey Billy C, I like your opinion on the possible outcome of the World Boxing Super Series in the event that George Groves injured his shoulder and will prevent him from continuing. I've been reading some ridiculous comments on YouTube with people saying that Eubank Jr. should automatically have the right to face the winner of Smith, and he's got versus Brahmer, but this was before he knew that. Or that another fighter who wasn't even in the contest should be brought in. Some have even suggested that Eubank Jr. should fight the loser of the other semifinal between Smith and Brahmer, and then if he wants to go on to the final. I can't see the logic in that, because whoever loses out of the Smith fight and goes on to fight Eubank Jr., well, if they beat Jr., then they'll be fighting someone that they've only lost against in the semifinal. In other words, would be having the same fight twice. Does that make sense to you? Doesn't make sense either to have some outside fighter brought into the contest and possibly even win it, or have someone who has already lost his place to be given another chance. How can that be fair on the others? The idea of the contest is to weed out the opposition until one man left standing. So if a boxer such as Groves can't make the deadline, then the last man standing wins by default, and in this case it should be the winner against Smith and Brahmer, which it's not Brahmer anymore. It's clear as day to me, if a boxer can't stand up to the rigors of the contest, then you have a big problem. He says, as to this email, the WBS is now down between Smith and Brahmer pulled out, so now they decided to put in Niki Holskin, a kickboxer turned boxer who lost his last 3 kickboxing fights. What's going on? Why don't they just postpone the Smith Brahmer fight for 4 to 6 weeks and reschedule the final accordingly? Then Groves would be ready. Problem fixed. This drafting in outsiders is not what this contest is supposed to be about. Another option is to just let Smith advance right into the final with Groves. I'm sure George won't mind that. I'm beginning to think that the boxing tournaments are not the future of boxing. I'd appreciate your guys' thoughts. And before we give you our thoughts, the last one is he says, I thought I'd better let you know that I do understand that these events are financially driven, and it's only because of the money that these tournaments even take place. My points are made purely from the logistical point of view, and at no time do I consider whether or not the money is being made or lost by investors of the project. I feel that the people who organize these contests are not deeply enough prepared for when things go slightly askew, and their contingency plans lack depth, and they appear to be clutching at straws and rushing things through when even the tiniest bit of crap hits the fan. And then the whole event suffers in terms of fairness and equality, etc., but not financially. I imagine that careful planning and meticulous organization are the key elements involved, so that no matter what happens, the investor's money will still yield a profit, whilst the contest is won in as fair and a just manner as possible. I think this is called a utopia, LOL. Well, here's my thoughts, and Sal will get yours too, of course. You know, when they set these up, the beauty of the World Boxing Super Series was the fact that they had all the dates lined up. And they wanted to have this tournament start and end relatively quickly. You know, the Super Series, the Super 6 series that Showtime put on several years ago with Ward. You know, the problem with that was the lack of keeping it in the limelight. It dragged on for a couple of years, and people lost interest. The other one that they had, the Prize Fighter series over in England, that's all in the same day, and they had provisions for a cut or an injury where they would bring in an alternate. You have to have an alternate. Although it seems unfair, you have to have an alternate. And the alternate, what I think should be happening, is that they should have a set of alternates that are actually fighting among themselves on the undercards. So in other words, if you have, two, if you need two alternates, then there should be four fighters, and then they fight each other twice. They one fight, then the winners fight each other, and they're in a sense in a mini tournament, so that they're fighting and moving up as well, rather than have a guy sitting around on the couch and all of a sudden get that phone call, you're in, you're up, you're fighting now. I do see Willie's point here, Sal, that it seems unfair to the guys that have been going along. You get an injury, you get an illness, you can't continue, and some guy out of left field, like an old murder mystery movie, all of a sudden the killer's some guy that comes in out of left field. What do you mean he did it? Where did he come from?
Where was he?
Where was he? You know, what do you mean so-and-so did it? He wasn't even in the movie, you know, but, it's sort of like that. I think the only fair way, because you do have to keep in consideration the financial backing of these events, is to have another sub-tournament of sorts with the alternates. They have to be willing to progress just like the main guys, and they should be rewarded financially and, do it along those lines. What's your thoughts on this whole situation?
Let me ask you this. When was the first kickoff of the Super Series here? When did they start it?
Not that long ago. Several
This
months
year?
back.
I mean,
Yeah. It was last year. It's going to be done in May. The finals in May.
I know. And here's the thought, as has been suggested. There's too many variables, too many hoops, too many things that can happen, as we know now, between an injured fighter, somebody not making it to the next round, somebody this and that. You know, the beauty of tournaments is, usually going back to the amateurs, when you had a national AAU championship or a national Golden Glove championship, the whole thing was done in one weekend. Can that happen on a professional level? No. But you know what? To consolidate it and change, this is going to be hard for me to say, Bill. They should have something to promote, maybe something big that'll still leave some questions, because this is going to leave questions. This isn't a world title. This is a tournament predicated on who's going to win this tournament, who amongst the entries, the entrants. So why not have a tournament that's going to be 6 months long or something like that? Just follow my thoughts. Have these top-tier fighters that come to join this tournament to get the attention, to get the skill level, to get this and that, have them do a 5-round fight against each other, or a 6-round fight, or a 10-round fight. I don't know. And let them get this tournament over with in 6 months. That's it. Something like that, to keep the attention, to keep the continuity, and to keep everything else. That's just it. So even if they limited the fights to 5 rounds or 6 rounds, and whoever is able to go on to the next level is that fighter to do that. And when they get crowned the champion, like I said, because this isn't a world-sanctioned championship, there's going to be questions and doubts, but surely the champion of who wins it is going to be leveraged to fight for some type of world title afterwards. So the same thing with this scenario. You keep everybody's attention. You have everybody involved. You get the thing wrapped up in half a year, and so other fighters' careers aren't on hold for a year or two. I don't know. I don't know.
Listen, this tournament so far, in the sport that we live in today, in today's sport of professional boxing, so far is the closest to being the best setup that I've seen. I love the prize fighter tournament over in England where they have it all in one night. 3-round fights, you fight, you win, you get some time, and then bam, you move on. I like that. And that is my favorite. One night, it's over. You're crowning a champ.
Yeah.
The Super 6 took way too long.
Too long.
The only little improvement is what Willie suggests, that you need a better system for the alternates in the event that somebody gets injured or can't fight for some outside reason, an accident, an illness, or etc. And to just hand it to a guy that's waiting on the couch, so to speak, is not fair. It's the rules, and you all know. You see, here's the thing. The reason why it's fair is because you all knew the rules when you started, so the fighters can't complain. But the reason it's not fair from a fan perspective is that this guy's coming in from left field. Nikki Holskin has no chance of beating Callum Smith, and if he does, it's going to be a huge upset. My idea of having a sub-tournament of alternates that's going on at the same time does a lot of things. Number one, you're getting alternates that are actually getting opportunities to win and move on. So they, in a sense, deserve it. And then the other thing is exactly what you said. They're getting experience and they're fighting other fighters at the, assuming they're at the same level, and they're getting wins. They're getting wins relatively quickly, and they're positioning themselves in a shot for another title at some point. So it's a win-win situation for everyone. If they are looking for a fine-tuned tweaking mechanism, that would be it. I think that that's all they would have to do, Sal.
I think that does definitely put some light on the subject. Even to the degree, why not have the losers of those early rounds fight each other to be a future alternate if a fighter should not be able to come through during injury due to an injury or so. Let the two losers or first couple of losers do a round robin or whatever they have to do to be that chosen. They'll be designated. Guess what? You won the sub tournament, and you will be the opponent because styles make fights.
Yeah.
Maybe because fighter A lost to fighter B doesn't mean he can't beat fighter C who's in the finals.
No, listen, you're right. They could create a loser's bracket, but then it becomes a double elimination tournament. When you have a loser's bracket and you give it an opportunity for the losers to come up, it becomes a double elimination tournament. Now, if you have a loser's bracket with an asterisk next to it and say this loser's bracket is specifically for an alternate, especially in a World Series Boxing, World Boxing Super Series format, where they're all the same weight class, that'll work too, Sal. So that's a good idea. One last email. This is from my man Luke Thunder Breslin. He says, hey, Billy C. and Sal, hope you guys are well and enjoyed your week off. Thank you. I'm certainly well, and I recharged 100% and had a great time where I was. So that was a well-needed vacation. It was actually the first real vacation I took in a long time. He says, I hope you managed to catch the Groves Eubank Jr. fight over the weekend. Needless to say, the fight captured the nation over here in the UK. Let's be honest, it wasn't a classic. It was a very messy fight, but one that's left us with more questions than it answered. The general consensus with the boxing community here in the UK is that Chris Eubank Jr.'s stock has plummeted miles. For me, the result was a relief. I'm a big fan of sorts of Eubank Jr. since he debuted. Very rarely do we get to see a fighter's full journey on national television, but with Eubank Jr., we got that. He debuted on Channel 5, which was a national channel over here, and his fights have been pretty much televised ever since. However, there's been that niggling voice in the back of my head, which also happens to be the voice of his father. Since Junior debuted, Senior has done nothing but sing his praise and tell us how amazing Junior is. And in all honesty, we never quite have seen that happen. And on Saturday, he was found desperately wanting. So finally, the hype machine that came to an end. I'm not sure I'm telling anyone anything new, but it was blatantly obvious that Junior needed a coach, not a father figure screaming at him. Going into those middle rounds, he looked completely clueless and just threw wild punches. It was a bit of a shock, but more disappointing that this has led to more discussion that Junior's loss than Groves' win. I'm just going to take the time and say, simply put, he boxed pretty much perfectly for what he needed to do. I've never written George off, and he's getting the tail end of his career now, so I just hope he notches it up a win after a win and then gracefully hangs up the gloves and strolls off into the sunset. I also like to state my admiration for Bam Bam Rios. I've been a fan of Brandon for some time. We've been to incredible heights together and crushing lows, most of which involve him not being able to make weight. Honestly, when that man gets in a fight, he just causes me to laugh. Whether he's having an all-out war with somebody or when he's knocked out, he's just a pile of flailing limbs on the floor. The knockout to Danny Garcia made me literally spit my drink out with laughter. Classic Brandon. You may think me morbid, but every time he steps in the ring, it's pure entertainment. As my friend said, he's an old school fighter and an old school character. One thing that has been playing on my mind recently, with that of the rise of AJ, making boxing more of a household sport again, plus the electric crowds they've been getting for the World Boxing Super Series, suddenly made me realize that there clearly is a market for the sport in what was considered non-traditional markets. Take one of the cruiserweight fights in the WBSS was fought in Lativa. And whilst I understand there was a hometown fighter, that crowd was on fire and desperate to see some good quality sport. Got me thinking of what it would be like to see world champions actually fight around the world. I understand that'll be said the money isn't right and the television networks say it's not worth it, blah, blah, blah. I disagree. There's clearly a fan base scattered around the globe. Excuse me, I'm coughing here. That are desperate to see the sport of boxing. As we discussed numerous times, the majority of these world champions have earned decent money but dare not take any risks. I just find it disappointing that you have these multi-weight world champions who never fight outside of their own country. The great Muhammad Ali fought on 6 continents as a world champion. Sugar Ray Robinson went on a world tour at the end of his career. So I was wondering what your guys' opinions on the role of a world champion. Great to have you back. What's your thoughts, Sal?
I'd rather hear your thoughts first. I got cut off with a little bit. I lost some of the sound.
Well, first and foremost, I think that the Chris Eubank Jr., I think that Luke made a great point. A lot of times having a rah-rah man like your pops in the corner can help sometimes. But in the heat of a battle where you really need that instruction, you gotta get it, and he clearly wasn't getting it on Saturday. As far as Brandon Rios, I don't understand why my man Luke laughs when he's floundering around on the canvas, but I do understand his point about Brandon Rios being nothing less than an entertaining fighter. Always has been and always will be as long as he continues to fight. And the Anthony Joshua rise clearly has shown that there's a lot of interest in the sport when you have the right character. I've always said that what boxing lacks and what we haven't seen since Mike Tyson is a character that you love or hate, but a character nonetheless. But the difference between, because people could say, well, Floyd Mayweather was a character. You either loved him or hate him. He was in the news. He was doing this. He was doing that. The difference is Floyd Mayweather was not exciting. You gotta be a character. You got to have people either love you or hate you. That's part of it. The other part is you got to be exciting in the ring. You got to bring something to the ring more than a snooze fest of a fight. That's why Floyd's going to be virtually a forgotten guy over X amount of time. In 20 years from now, nobody's going to be talking about him. No, we hardly talk about him anymore as it is. As far as world champions fighting around the world, I think that, like Dax said on this show many times, boxing is a global sport now, and we should bring big events to countries that are willing to house it in big stadiums, and as long as the financial gain is there, why not? I can't stand the fighters that want everything in their favor. It skews it. It leaves a bad taste in the fan's mouth, and it's just negative on the sport. I think you should go to where the demand is. What do you think?
Well,
about
you
all of that?
make a great point, and that's why, we've been talking about it. Anthony Joshua wants to make his American debut. He wants to come here, and he wants to fight, and he wants to have a good showcase where he's going to be able to pick up some more United States fans. And I think that's a natural, and that's an incentive for him to come to the States and fight. I think that what you said is valid across the board. And, the fighters that we talk about today are fighters that are good for the sport. The sport is exciting fighters, and whether you like them or not, you got to give Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. They are pretty much in the driver's seat as far as the heavyweight division, and we want to see them two clash. And I thought it was brilliant, as you suggested. I heard you talk with Larry Hazard, and as we were saying earlier, for Anthony Joshua to come to the Barclay, I mean, that's ingenious. I mean, you're going to be in your future opponent's backyard, and you're going to be showcased. And how can you stop the rumblings and the talk about that if you do well? I think that's brilliant. I also loved what you said earlier. I don't want to get off the subject, but Larry Hazard. I mean, we've been scoring it the 10-point must system rigidly for decades, with the 10 points going to the winner and the 9 points going to the loser, and an 10-8 round would be a knockdown.
Yeah, but wait a minute. The 10-point must system, just so everybody understands, and this was the point that Larry was making, doesn't mean that you have to score a 10-9. It just means somebody's got to get a 10. That's what the 10 point. I mean, the 10 point. It's not changing the 10-point must system. It's just saying that somebody has to get a 10. The only time that you don't get a 10 is if I barely win a round against you, and they're going to score that 10-9, and all of a sudden I get a point deducted. Now it becomes 9-9. That's right. What he was saying was, if you're battering me for 3 minutes of a round, why should you only get a 10-9 score when you should possibly be getting a 10-8? So then the next round, if I squeak by, and score that 10-9, theoretically going into the third round, on the scorecards, it's an even fight, even though you beat the snot out of me in the first round. So that's the whole point that Larry was making, and I agree with him.
I agree 100%. And who's to say, why not have a round you get knocked down, a 10-7, or maybe, and sometimes you have both fighters hitting the canvas on the same round, and you can score it 8-8 or 7-7. I don't know. There's a lot of ways. When they say the 10-point must system, again, here's the rules. The winner of each round should get 10 points, the loser 9 points or less. Definitive definition term is less. So who's to say you can't use the scale 1 through 9 to give that opponent who or that fighter who loses that round 9 points or less?
Yeah, but the thing is like what Larry was suggesting, is that the reason why we get these crazy scorecards is because judges aren't utilizing the point system enough. It's the same thing where if I'm fighting you and you're battering me for 2 minutes and 40 seconds of the round, all of a sudden I land a shot and catch you and you were off balance, but nonetheless a punch caused you to go down, the judges would score that 10-8 in my favor. That becomes a 3-point swing.
That's right. Yeah, it's like I said, and that's why, Bill, that's why there'll always be some controversy. It's all the human element, and it's all subject to opinion and some guidelines, yes, that keep the opinions honest. But that's why we have such a great point system disparity. I mean, not to take in consideration Adeline birds, but when it's 2 out of 3 judges see one fight one way, it's not perfect. It's not perfect, but it's been implemented for decades. And until we come up with another, even with that being said, could you imagine if we used the 10-point must system with the other numbers coming into play, 10-7, 10-6? You might see judges way off course and all way off balance or whatever, and there'll be more controversy then. But I do think that Larry Hazard was making some great points about that. So who knows? It's not a perfect science, and never will be.
Listen, don't forget, it's great that we're back, and I feel rejuvenated here. So don't forget to tune in tomorrow. We got a lot of stuff to pick up on. We'll give you an update on Daniel Jacobs and another fraud heavyweight named Big Baby Miller. And also some quotes from Luis Ortiz. Is this going to be a real fight against Deontay? I don't know, man. It sounded more like a setup than anything else. Also, some more news on Adrian Broner. What a clown. This guy turned into such a clown. But anyway, on this day in boxing history, February 21st, in 1998, Juan Carlos Gomez wins a 12-round decision over Marcelo Dominguez to win the WBC World Cruiserweight title that took place in Argentina. On this day in 2002, Yadomrong Sithadong wins a 12-round decision over Yober Ortega to win the WBA World Junior Featherweight title, and it took place in Thailand. On this day in 1941, Tony Zale knocks out Steve Mamakos in the 14th round to retain his world middleweight title. It took place in Chi-Town. On this day in 1987, our man, Bobby Ches, knocks out Willie Edwards in the second round to retain his IBF World Light Heavyweight title. It took place in your second home of Atlantic City in New Jersey. And on this day, Carlos De Leon, in 1987, Carlos De Leon knocks out Angelo Rotili in the fifth round to retain his WBC World Cruiserweight title, and that took place in Italy on this day in February 1987, on February 21st. Hey, listen, man, that concludes our show for today. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.